it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
All right, good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Thursday, June 2nd, 2016. Shout out to all my friends in the beautiful state of Oregon who are now legal to buy edibles, tinctures, concentrates, topicals, salves, oils, and extracts. Don't have to go across the river to Vancouver anymore, folks. Not that you would have done that, because going across the river to Vancouver to buy edibles and tinctures and extracts and then bringing across the river back to Oregon where it's legal to possess them, why, that would be illegal. So don't do that. But you don't have to anymore, because now it's legal in Oregon for you to go get those at the state shops, at the dispensaries. Although we've got these limits, 15 milligram limit, purchase limit for recreational consumers. One vapor cartridge. One 1 gram vapor cartridge is all you can get at a time. And, the only reason, the only real reason I can think of for these purchase limits that we have in the legal states is the continuing illegality of marijuana in the other states. Like, who stops anyone from buying 8 cases of beer or 20 cases of beer? Nobody's going to stop that, right? They don't care how much beer you buy. There's no limit on it. Because who cares how much beer you buy? What are you going to do with it? Put it in your fridge, right? Have a party, whatever. Nobody thinks you're going to take cases of beer to another state and then start selling beer at 4 times what you paid for it. That's not going to happen unless it does actually happen in some places. Like some of the Native American reservations are prohibition lands. They're dry, right? So there's this town in Nebraska, White Clay, Nebraska. Population 10. 10 people live in White Clay, Nebraska. It has 4 off-site sales beer stores, alcohol stores, right? 4 stores in a town of 10. And these 4 stores consistently set the record across the state for the most alcohol taxes brought in and the most cans of beer sold. And the reason why is because they're right there on the northern border of Nebraska, right up against the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, the Oglala Sioux up there, that are a prohibition res, right? There's no alcohol. Possession's illegal, right? So, so Nebraska is selling alcohol like crazy to the Native Americans of the sovereign nation of the Oglala Sioux, right, the Lakota, and they want to complain about Colorado weed coming across to Nebraska? Talk about hypocrites. Like you're making over $500,000 in alcohol taxes by selling alcohol to Native Americans on prohibition lands, but you want to complain that Colorado's messing up your prohibition of marijuana. That's a massive set of testicles you got to have to kind of make that argument, don't you think? But anyway, we got these limits. I want to talk a little bit more about these limits as we move into our next segment, because it's frustrating to me because, I'm the first to admit that a lot about this show is very selfish. Why do I do this? Because I want to smoke weed legally. And I want to help y'all smoke weed legally too. I'm not completely selfish. I don't want them to just legalize just for Russ. But I won't deny ever that there's a personal aspect to this. I'm in this because I lost my career to a drug test. And I ain't stopping until drug tests don't cost anybody's career anymore. And that doesn't happen until we legalize weed. And until we legalize weed in all 50 states, we're going to be subject to these stupid limits because they're afraid of us taking weed out of state and selling it to other people. So we'll talk more about that. We'll also take calls if you want to call in here. It's 971-533-7111. That's 971-533-7111 from all across the North American continent. I'm Radical Russ, live in Aspen. We're back right after this.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Maui Wowie, Acapulco Gold, California Kush. Our strains stretch everywhere too.
This is the Cannabis Radio Network.
Play as Ted Growing, expelled botany sophomore and the biggest grower in town, only on Weed Firm Replanted. Available on the App Store and Google Play.
It's a lot of work being the biggest grower in town. Maintaining a room full of plants while dealing with a slew of eccentric customers, from a hardcore partier to the curious neighbor next door.
Is anybody home?
Help me expand my bud business by unlocking new strains, customizing my grow room, and completing challenges that you can't get enough of. Grow your empire so big you can see it from space. Low on funds? Don't worry. Weed Firm Replanted is free to download.
Download Weed Firm Replanted for free on the App Store and Google Play today. Get growing, Mr. Growing.
It's time to Hemp Present.
I am going to titillate your audio orifices with weekly radio rendezvous with some of the premier movers, shakers, and history makers of the cannabis community.
Radio resident Hempo Sapien Vivian McPeak.
I will be putting out a call to action on issues of the day and putting your interest under the big lights as I provide cannabis commentary and weekly interviews that go straight for the nugular.
Marijuana! Hemp Present, only on Cannabis Radio.
Sweet sativa,
Get the latest updates on the Russ Belville Show by following Radical Russ on Twitter and liking the Russ Belville Show on Facebook.
With over 6 years of experience in the industry, New Era CPAs is one of the nation's leading cannabis accounting firms, helping hundreds of growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies with their tax, legal, and business strategies. New Era CPA's offices cover the West Coast from Seattle to San Diego, and their skilled team is always available to help you take your business to the next level. Visit neweracpas.com for more info and set up a consultation. Welcome to the New Era.
Pod 2.0. It's not your father's Woodstock weed. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Just a quick reminder, I'm still soliciting donations for the Russ Belville True Legalization Amendment. If you want to see marijuana truly legalized, you can donate through PayPal. Russ@RadicalRuss.com. Send your donations through PayPal to Russ@RadicalRuss.com. We will fight for the Russ Belville True Legalization Amendment. It legalizes all the marijuana you want to possess, all the marijuana you want to cultivate, for every person 18 and older, with a maximum tax of $10 per ounce. And the state grows weed for free for patients and veterans and anyone over the age of 50. And everybody gets a free quarter pound on their birthday. And Jack Herrer's birthday is replaces Columbus Day as a federal holiday. And Russ Belville never has to pay money for weed. There you go. That's the Russ Belville True Legalization Amendment. I'm soliciting donations. Russ@RadicalRuss.com on PayPal. Now, we were talking about these limits. So we got these limits. Like in Colorado, it's a 10 milligram limit on your edible per package or per serving, and then 100 milligram total per package. And your package, you got to divide up. There has to be divisions so you can see what 10 milligrams is, right? This is done as a consumer safety thing so people can know exactly what they're getting. And this is a huge leap forward, of course, from the days of, Alice B. Toklas brownies, right? Where take a bite, see what happens. That was pretty much your quality control. Now we can know. And let's leave aside the fact that we're having some troubles with standardization and testing at this point, as far as actually really knowing. Let's pretend like we actually really know. So now we can know how many milligrams are in any particular serving. And in Oregon, they're going to set that as a 15 milligram purchase limit for the recreational consumer. And here's where I have a problem with it, is that this idea that the recreational consumers are all the newbies or all the tourists or all the old boomers coming back and trying it again isn't completely accurate. A lot of us recreational consumers, myself included, and probably most of you listening, are your daily tokers, people that have quite a bit of a tolerance that is built up. And when you look at the figures as far as who's supporting this market, it is the mass consumers. It's the old Pareto rule, the 80-20 rule. 80% of your consumption's driven by 20% of your consumers. So if you're setting these limits at the low end of the bell curve as far as who's consuming, you're setting it for the newbies that don't consume very often, whereas the bulk of your consumption is by people who have these greater tolerances. One of two things is going to happen. One, they're just going to buy more of the product. And then you've got the attendant harms of calories and fats. And, you got to eat 6-10 brownies to get the effect. Well, nobody wants to do that. So the other effect is when these states have recreational limits that don't match a medical limit, it provides this incentive for the heavy recreational consumer to find a way to get himself on that medical marijuana registry. I won't be limited by my 10 milligrams. I won't be limited by that 15 milligrams. I'll just get my medical card, and then I'll be able to get whatever I want. And I don't think we want to encourage that. I think as marijuana becomes more legal on the recreational side, we want it to be to actually be so that, okay, if you're smoking weed because you like to smoke weed, that's great. This is your side. But if you're a seriously ill patient, we want you on this side. But so long as we keep trying to do that and we create separate but equal, actually separate and unequal systems, there'll be that incentive to want to jump the fence and get into the side that gives you more potency. Or find a straw buyer. Now this becomes an incentive for patients to be able to make a little money. Hey, I'll go to the dispensary and buy a whole bunch of Chiba Chews, high potency ones I can get on the medical side, if you kick in extra for, just like we used to do in the day when you wanted to buy a bag, right? You charged a little extra to your friends so that made up for what your bag cost, so you were getting your bag for free. Same thing is going to go for the patients now who want to get a certain supply of edibles. They'll just buy a whole bunch more, sell off the extra for an inflated price because the recreational consumer doesn't have access to that. And then we're right back to where we started with prohibition. Now, this isn't to say we're not moving forward. It's not to say that, having this regulation and having these limits is necessarily a bad thing, but I think we need to be cognizant of what the unintended consequences of this could be. And I know for myself, I'm not really much of an edibles guy, but the time I like edibles is, I call them airplane food. You give me a couple of edibles before I got to get on an airplane. That's perfect. Takes care of the back pain. I'm a big guy in a coach seat, right? Takes care of that. Gives you that little nod off ability. You wake up when the plane lands. But I don't want to have a situation where I got to take a knapsack full of edibles when I could use just a couple of high potency Chiba Chews. And I just don't see, in a world where people can get prescriptions for fentanyl, that we're worried about there being 100 milligram chocolate chew or something. Now, the other side of this also, the safety side, also gets around, well, what about the parent who leaves the edible out, the kid gets into it, and if it's 100 milligram edible, that kid's in for a bad ride, bad trip. Absolutely, that is definitely a concern. But as we try to attack that problem, it's always kind of funny to me how we don't do the simple things that could make this work. Like, I always thought if we wanted to have a simple, recognizable, universal, even an illiterate person who doesn't speak English even, we need a symbol that they would know, even a child would know, represents this edible, has some marijuana in it. hey, how about the pot leaf? What more perfect, iconic symbol of something containing marijuana, the pot leaf? But no. Washington State tried to come up with a logo that had a pot leaf on it, and everybody freaked out. Oh, we can't have the pot leaf. That might make people think we're encouraging marijuana use. It's a label on a piece of pot that people are buying to use. We don't need to encourage them. They're there. They're buying it now. So that just blows my mind, right? No, we can't have the pot leaf. That would glorify marijuana use. That would encourage marijuana use. Okay, so then what? We're going to come up with some other symbol? For a while, there was a discussion of using the Mr. Yuck symbol. You remember Mr. Yuck? This was when I was a kid, right? Mr. Yuck is mean. Mr. Yuck is green, right? And you put it on the poison, right? The bleach and Drano and that kind of stuff. Because they had found that little kids, when they saw the skull and crossbones, were starting to think it was pirates. Okay? Because the whole iconography, tough word here in Aspen, the whole iconography of the skull and crossbones morphed from death to being pirates, and kids are into pirates and that. So they said, all right, we got to come up with Mr. Yuck. And they came up with this green sticker with a frowny face, Mr. Yuck. But then people started thinking about it. If you put Mr. Yuck on marijuana, and then the kids see the parents using the marijuana with the Mr. Yuck on it, they're going to think Mr. Yuck is something that means fun adult stuff, and then they're going to go get into the Drano and the bleach and whatever. So, all right, so we can't use Mr. Yuck. Now what are we going to do? So there's all sorts, and then there's the call to make sure that the edibles don't appeal to the children. See, they're making gummy bears. They're making gummy bears that obviously appeals to the children. You know, I looked it up, folks. According to the National Association of Confectioners, the candy lobby, big candy, adults consume 75% of the gummy bears in America. 3 out of 4 gummy bears went into an adult's mouth, right? But yeah, making pot gummy bears is somehow appealing to the children. And then just this last week, the FDA approves amphetamine gummies. Amphetamine gummies. And this takes you back to, speaking of Aspen, Paul Armentano does his amazing presentation here in Aspen. He has a slide that he puts up, and it's the answer to the prohibitionists that say, well, we just don't have enough research. There's not enough scientific studies on marijuana. We don't know if it's safe. We don't have enough research, not enough studies. And he points out that when you go to PubMed, the U.S. government's database of all the studies on everything, PubMed comes up with over 23,450 studies on marijuana. Over 23,000. When you put Adderall into that, you get 188. So the FDA is ready to jump on creating amphetamine gummies for kids. But Project Sam and the anti-legalizers want to scare us with the threat, the specter of pot gummy bears. There's a lot of hype and a lot of scaremongering around this. But we should keep in mind that no pot edible is going to kill anybody, and that we do have to recognize some level of responsibility for parents to keep stuff out of the hands of their kids. And that there's got to be a balance between the freedom for adults to be adults and to consume what they want to consume, and a responsibility to protect society, to protect kids. And for that, I say, yes, let's label the things. Hell, I'd make a rule that anything that was an edible, like for sale, had to either have a pot leaf stamped on the edible itself. Like if you're making a chocolate bar, it would have to have the imprint of a pot leaf on every 10 milligram snap of that chocolate bar. Or in the case of gummies, the gummies would have to be pot leaf shaped cookies out of pot leaf cookie cutters. Let's make use of the most powerful brand and icon that we know about marijuana. Why keep trying to reinvent the wheel here? Why do we fear the symbol of the pot leaf? Why? Because it doesn't just stand for pot. It stands for hippies and Vietnam and left-wing politics and a bunch of other things we'll talk about after we take this safety break.
Oh, God, I thought that was absolutely dreadful.
Well, thanks a lot, Simon Cowell, but I thought it was pretty nice myself. It's 5:20 here in Aspen, Colorado. That means it's 4:20 right back home in the Pacific time zone. Happy 4:20 to everybody out there. West Coast is the best coast. When we come back, we've got more people starting to show up here for the NORML Aspen Legal Seminar. It's the mixer tonight. We're going to do some mixing. Stay tuned.
How high do you like your profit margin?
CannabisRadio.com.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
NORML stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks are far less than those posed by legal drugs.
You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com, where we don't change our mind on decriminalization during an election year.
New beginner guitars and banjos are often constructed much better than ones built before your time. Why struggle? Get a new instrument or fix the old one. The trusted professionals at the Fingerboard Extension will evaluate your instrument for free. Repairs are priced for people who work for a living. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today, or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com.
Warning, hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that. This is Dan Michaels from danmichaelsaudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. We're coming to you live from the NORML Aspen Legal Seminar. We are at the Welcoming Mixer. We got a few people that are up here on the second floor rooftop deck, enjoying some beer and wine and other legal substances in the state of Colorado. Like cider. Cider's legal in the state, and cigars. Two other things that start with C that are legal in Colorado. So I actually I went in to get a Pellegrino water, and he heard me say Pinot Grigio. So I have both. I have wine and water. So things are good here for me. We had some amazing presentations today. And one of them, we had, his name, I think it's Adam Wolf. I know his last name's Wolf. And he was covering the federal, the assaults in the federal courts on Colorado's marijuana laws. And it was fascinating because apparently there's been 3 cases that have been brought to try to undermine Colorado's marijuana legalization. And it's interesting from the point of view of looking at it, you know, from political strategy and tactics. Back in the day when we were first fighting for marijuana legalization, when NORML was first started in the 70s and all the way through, even up through the 90s, there was no victory to be had at the ballot box. California got like 32% on a legalization. Oregon got 26% on a legalization. There was no hope at the ballot box. So a lot of the attacks that were done through the court system. NORML versus DEA, Getman versus DEA. A lot of different court cases were brought forth with the sole intent of trying to change these laws, trying to change these marijuana laws. And fruitless for the most part. We did get some great stuff out of them. Out of one of the lawsuits, of course, we got the DEA's administrative judge, Francis Young, to admit in the federal record that marijuana is the safest therapeutically active substance known to man, and by any rational standard of safety should be accepted in our society. But, as far as, advancing the movement forward, we didn't really get much until medical marijuana started in the 90s. And so Adam made this point today in his presentation that now we're starting to see our opponents taking the fight to the courts rather than the bully pulpit or the ballot box. We don't see as much of the big press conferences like Barry McCaffrey used to hold and talk about Cheech and Chong medicine and all that kind of stuff. We don't really see that kind of public outreach anymore because they know they'll be laughed off the stage. They know they see the polls. They see 70 to 90% support for medical cannabis, depending on which demographic you're looking at, which state. And they know they can't win at the ballot box for that very reason. So they don't see a lot of, attempts to fight it. Although I guess in Montana and California, there are some ballot initiatives to criminalize marijuana, right? Prohibition amendments that are up for votes, or that are trying to get up for a vote. They're still collecting signatures. Probably won't do it. But he made the point that Adam Wolf made the point that our opponents now are increasingly going to the courts, and maybe this is a sign that we're winning. That just like when we were lost in the wilderness in the 70s and had to sue to get anywhere, now they're lost in the wilderness and they have to sue to get anywhere. So he brought up these three cases, and one of the cases, hi there, there's Lauren, hi Lauren. One of the cases had to do with a Holiday Inn that was suing a dispensary. This is in Colorado, MMJ of the Rockies, medical marijuana of the Rockies. So this Holiday Inn sued because this MMJ of the Rockies was right next door, and they sued through the RICO statutes. Now, RICO, what that is, racketeer influenced corrupt organizations thing, right? RICO is what you use when you go after the mafia, right? This is what you go after the mob. And it has to do with coercion and conspiracy and that criminal stuff, right? But the way it's interpreted, and there's a civil RICO as well, is in the way he explained it, is that you could sue if you showed that these people's conspiracy was materially affecting your business. And so he said, well, yeah, we're at this Holiday Inn, and these high school ski teams canceled their annual reservations because there's a pot shop right next door. And so he went through how this case, was kind of an interesting case, and it was fruitless for their attempt. Fortunate for us that it didn't go the other way. But basically, the way that law is written is that they had to show that there was a direct effect from that dispensary being there, and that there wasn't other mitigating circumstances. Like you pointed out, that, yeah, you may have lost the high school ski team, but did you possibly also gain other business because there's a pot shop right nearby? And so that, the possibility that existed made it a little shakier to move forward on those RICO grounds. And then there was another RICO case where a property owner tries to sue a dispensary, saying that this dispensary brings in criminal element and unwanteds in the neighborhood and is driving down his real estate value. The courts didn't go for that either. And then, of course, the third case is the one most people are more familiar with, which is the Nebraska and Oklahoma lawsuit against the state of Colorado, trying to get the federal government to say, hey, look, the state of Colorado is breaking the Controlled Substances Act. They're breaking federal law. And because they're breaking federal law, it's making it harder for us to enforce our prohibition law. Now, this was an interesting case, and the Supreme Court decided not to hear it. And I think they remanded it down to lower courts or something. But it's an interesting case because it comes under what's called the Supreme Court's original jurisdiction, which is what case, because every other case that gets to the Supreme Court gets there through appeal, right? It went through a regular court and then an appeals court and then a state Supreme Court and maybe a couple federal district courts or whatever, right? Supreme Court's supposed to be the last court of appeal, but it does have an original jurisdiction, which is lawsuits between the states. Two states are suing each other. They resolve it in the Supreme Court. So this was where this lawsuit had come from Nebraska and Oklahoma, saying, hey, look, The Colorado legalization is making it harder for us to enforce our prohibition. Supreme Court decided not to take it up because it's not Colorado's fault. Nebraska or Oklahoma can't enforce its laws. And if you think about it, if you really take it to its logical extreme, the people that are pushing for this lawsuit, they don't really want the result that they would get. They don't want the precedent that this would set. Because the precedent wouldn't be just marijuana specific. It would be that the laws in one state are impeding the enforcement of a law in another state. You could start extending that to all sorts of things. You could say, hey, our state of Illinois has some really strict gun laws, but the neighboring state of Indiana does not. And I don't know the gun laws for sure, but let's say Virginia and Washington, D.C., right? So, yeah, these neighboring state has really lax gun laws, and that's making it harder for us to enforce our gun prohibitions, right? It would fit the same logical pattern as the marijuana case would, for sure. So, be careful what kind of precedent these guys would be going for. Unfortunately, that case isn't going forward either. But Nebraska and Oklahoma now have joined on to that second case I was telling you about the property values. And we'll see how that one turns out. But this is the kind of stuff that we get to hear about here at this NORML Aspen Legal Seminar. Some of the most influential criminal defense and business attorneys and, consultants and people in the industry are here for this event. We started the day off, like I told you, with the sheriff speaking to us. It's quite amazing when you get the county sheriff talking to a bunch of people who are self-proclaimed marijuana consumers. That's a beautiful thing. We had Paul Armentano spoke on the safety and efficacy of cannabis. I told you a little bit about that. And Courtney Moran, another attorney from Portland, Oregon, talked a lot about cannabis, hemp law, and history, and what's going on as far as the hemp movement. And she made a really good point. And that was that since the 2014 Farm Bill, there have been 18 states that have passed some measure of hemp reform, hemp legalization. 18 states, right? Where's the media coverage on that? Right? Since 2014, we'd have 16 states that have had CBD laws, and each one of those gets front page news. And we've had, since 2014, another, 4 or 5 states that have passed medical cannabis, and that gets front page news. Why not the front page news for the passage of these industrial hemp? It just kind of flies under the radar there. So we heard from Courtney, and then Danica Noble gave her presentation on unfair business practices and consumer protection issues in the emerging marijuana markets. And this was entertaining to me. She had something to say about Mark Kleiman. Now, you know Mark Kleiman. Mark A.R. Kleiman. His first name is his full name's recursive acronym. Mark A.R. Kleiman. Mark. I just call him Mark, like a robot. So, Mark Kleiman was the pot czar for Washington State. And Danica went into some detail about how it was annoying that we got this guy on who has no background in horticulture, no background in economics, to come forth and take taxpayer money to determine exactly how many pot shops there should be and exactly how much grow canopy there should be. And as Danica points out, there's some really good mechanisms for determining these things. It's called the market. The market can take care of these things just fine. So all that money that we paid to Mark Kleiman and Botec, how much of that could have gone toward educational campaigns? Could have gone toward, any other effect, while the market figured out how many of these things there should be. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'll see if we can get someone on the mic here. There's dinner being pushed into my face. Sheriff from Ohio, and a couple drinks from Keith Straub. Thanks, Keith. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
seed to sale, clicks to conversions, and more. You're listening to the Cannabis Radio Network.
The next generation of vaporizers has arrived. Vuber vaporizers are blazing the way with unparalleled technology for oil, concentrate, or dry flower pens. Providing unsurpassed customer service and expert craftsmanship, Vuber vaporizers use cutting-edge technology, providing a power-packed, smoother vapor with a lifetime guarantee. Experience vaporizing the way it was meant to be. The Vuber way.
Educator, author, and advocate Dr. Mitch Earlywine is here to tackle the burning issues.
Author Catherine Hiller and her great new book, Just Say Yes, Marijuana Memoir. So I love the way you use time in the memoir.
I started at the present time, and I described a visit to my dealer, and then I would go backward in time so that every chapter starts a little bit earlier. I do not feel that marijuana has in any way harmed my life. It certainly hasn't led me to the streets. It's led me to a more joyful life experience.
Burning Issues, only on CannabisRadio.com.
The Russ Belville Show. Chat is for friends 18 and older. We expect our chat to be civil, mature, and free from excessive profanity. If you don't like these rules, there are approximately 6 billion other chat rooms with lower standards that you can visit.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
Most of us pirates, we go on vacation to North Dakota, you know, because they've got a town called Argusville. What are you smoking there, boy? This is Dan Michaels from DanMichaelsAudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. 37 after the hour. We're coming to you live from Aspen, Colorado. We're here at the rooftop hangout of the conference center at the Gant here in Aspen, Colorado. And we've got the founder of NORML is going to join us here in just a second. He's talking with someone at the moment, but a few people hanging out up here. We see Cher from Ohio NORML is up here as well. So people from all over the country coming up here to Aspen. A lot of attorneys learning the latest in criminal defense, the latest in the court decisions. And now, as marijuana is legal in a number of states, the business side, the corporate law side of marijuana, which is just growing like a weed, dare I say it? Yeah, I did. And so there's a lot of education going on right now in that respect as well. And coming up on tomorrow's Aspen Legal Seminar, they're going to be hearing from Mary E. Kahn from Houston, Texas. She's standing over there. And she'll be speaking about laws, drugs, and our changing society. We'll also hear from a couple attorneys from Lansing, Michigan on child custody and child welfare cases as that deals with the marijuana issue. We've got Professor Sam Kamen from the University of Denver Law School talking about marijuana policy reform on the federal level. We'll also hear from experts on DUI evidence cases. And we finish up tomorrow with a retired U.S. attorney, Barry Grissom from Kansas, a U.S. attorney in Kansas, who's talking about the advantages to ending marijuana prohibition from the perspective of a U.S. attorney. I can't wait to hear this one. And we'll have recordings of all of these presentations at the NORML Aspen Legal Seminar available through my SoundCloud page and posted up at CannabisRadio.com as well. You can follow me at Radical Russ and follow the show at RB Show 420 if you want to know more and to be able to get the alerts as to when these things will be happening. All right, we're just a couple seconds away here, and we'll see if we can get some more people here on the line as we're doing it live. So I'm trying to catch people's attention as we continue our live presentation. Tomorrow also finishes up with a benefit dinner at Jerry Goldstein's house. He's the award winner for the NORML Human Rights Award, Social Justice Award, I think is it's called. And Chef Chris Lanter from Cash Cash Restaurant will be catering that for us. It'll be quite an amazing dinner. It usually is every year. Coming up on Saturday, we'll learn more about cannabis business. We'll have estate planning for cannabis business owners, federal forfeiture cases, dog alerts. And then I can't wait for this Saturday presentation from Dr. Carl Hart, who'll be coming in to tell us how pot can cure racism. And so I'm going to catch the attention of Kevin or somebody. Kevin, come over here for just a moment. I've been trying to get Keith, but he's been talking and busy. Kevin Mamalji, the NORML Outreach Coordinator, joining us here live in Aspen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Russ. Appreciate it.
Great to be here. How are things going here in Colorado? I know Denver NORML's got an initiative they're going for.
Things are going great.
Jordan Person from Denver NORML right there.
Yeah, we actually have the campaign manager on hand, but what I can tell you is the campaign's going great. We have a lot of grassroots volunteers out working pretty much every day. We have anywhere from 10 to 15, 20 volunteers running around the city of Denver trying to...
Two per person for the drink tickets, yes.
Sure. But yeah, working hard to gather the close to 5,000 signatures needed to qualify for this November's ballot. Picking up momentum every day.
Is there any opposition to this?
And there is some opposition, and I wouldn't say that it's kind of widespread. It's more people that have business models that don't necessarily fit within our initiative. For example, there's a business model that is currently operating near a school. So our initiative puts in place a 1,000-foot buffer away from schools. And so, that individual isn't so happy with it. But, across the board, I think people are supporting the initiative. They see the need for it.
So another thing that happens up here in Aspen is kind of a fundraiser for NORML.
Right.
And you got like silent auction stuff. What's some of the cool stuff in the auction this year?
There's some really, really cool stuff. Native Roots donated a ton of stuff to Colorado NORML. They have some great T-shirts and stuff like that. But I have my eye on a couple glass pieces.
Yeah.
There's a nice a bong down there with a custom bowl, as well as another bong with a really funky, percolator and stuff in there. So, yeah, a lot of great stuff. There's also a book by Hunter S. Thompson, so I'm looking at it that way.
I saw a signed Cheech and Chong album.
I actually did not see that, so I'm going to have to make another pass.
Yep, signed by Cheech and Chong.
Fantastic.
Of course.
That's really cool.
Got to have them both.
Absolutely.
So we got the fundraiser going on. We also do the cookout at Hunter Thompson's house on Saturday. That'll be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Last year was actually my first time, and it was great. I mean, just taking it all in, because it's pretty much the way, from what I understand, the way Hunter left it.
Yeah.
Anita hasn't done anything to change it much, so pretty much the way he left it the day that he left us.
Wow.
It's still cool. It's very powerful.
So what's I know there's a NORML membership drive that's still going on. I think it got extended or something. Can
absolutely.
you fill us in?
Yeah, we've been doing the membership drive for a little bit over a month now. A lot of it's for the most part people are really receptive to it. We've been signing up a lot of folks. I think last time we spoke to Chris over at Freedom Leaf, they've pulled in over 300 new memberships. So they decided to capitalize off the momentum and extend it, I believe, another month. So that gives folks another opportunity to participate.
All right, let's see if we can get Keith over here before he gets. He gives some people a couple more tickets there.
Let me grab those tickets out of his hand. I'll send them over your way.
Okay, thanks so much. Kevin Mamalji, the NORML Outreach Coordinator there at here in Aspen. And we're just grabbing Keith. It's always so hectic here when people are just starting to stream in.
They can't get with our ticket.
How you doing, Keith?
I'm doing fine, Russ. I haven't adjusted totally to mountain time, but
or mountain air.
Yeah, mountain air. And so I find myself out of breath and breathing deeply every 10 steps or something. I feel a lot older here in Aspen than I do back in Washington.
I always say when I climb a stairway in Aspen, I feel like I'm really working out.
Well, that's right. And by the way, I've been taking that elevator, even though it's a slow elevator, those damn stairs at this altitude. But it's nice to be here. And boy, what great weather we've had.
We got some great weather here for the NORML Aspen Legal Seminar, and day one's activities have already concluded and got some great presentations today.
Yeah, they were. I think the program's very strong this year, and what people would realize if they look at the program. We have gradually shifted the Aspen seminar as contrasted to the Key West seminar in December. The Aspen one is more and more assuming you're a criminal defense lawyer, some of whose clients have come above ground and have licenses now, so that a lot of the people doing the business law now are former criminal defense lawyers. So a lot of our lectures now are aimed at expertise they need. In Key West, because you don't have any southeastern states that have legalized yet.
Right.
It's mostly a traditional criminal defense seminar.
Yeah, keep people out of jail.
Yeah, and cross-examination, or how to file a motion to suppress, or.
So, how long have we been coming up here to Aspen? When did this first start?
They came a few times when I was away from NORML. During the 80s, they were here at least once, maybe twice. It was a period when they were moving the seminar around. They were in California at different locations. They were in Santa Fe a couple of times. But I think we started coming annually pretty quickly after I came back to NORML, and I came back in 94. So probably by 95 or 96, we started coming here, and we've been coming ever since. And mostly we've been right here at the Gant because they treat us so well.
And I imagine a large degree of the reason why we keep coming back here is the warm reception from the Pitkin County Sheriff and the former denizens of this area that made it so memorable and strong for NORML.
Well, you're right. I mean, part of it is, remember, marijuana's not always been legal in Colorado.
Yeah.
Right now, everybody says, well, of course you'd be going to Aspen. Why not? It's legal. Well, it wasn't legal when we started coming, but it was legal for us in Aspen. And the hotel was always very generous about ignoring our marijuana smoking. We've always said at our social events, we expect people are going to want to share a joint or something. That's what we're about. So we've always done that. Even in states where marijuana is not yet legal, when we negotiate a contract with a hotel, we almost always discuss the fact that there will be people smoking marijuana, and if there's a problem, you call us, don't call the police.
Yeah. Why bother the police busting a room full of criminal defense lawyers?
Well, and by the way, it's been that way in Florida for a long time. We've been going to Florida for like 37 years, I think, to Key West. And the last 15 or so, we've stayed at this one hotel, and they just say the week we're there, marijuana is legal any place, by the pool, in the outdoor bar, the indoor bar, it doesn't matter. And the reason is, obviously, we got 135 criminal defense lawyers. Do you really want to bust them? I mean, on a joint? Yeah. Can you imagine the work you're going to go through?
Just getting through discovery.
Yeah, that's right.
Probably a whole lot of work.
And part of the game of legalizing marijuana is a lot of it's hard work, but you have to get some things where you get a little psychic enjoyment out of. And I think any time you're in an area where smoking is still illegal and you just say, the hell with you, we're smoking anyway, I'm always turned on by that. Always have been.
So when you're here in the legal state of Colorado, where it's a constitutional protected right, what sort of things does NORML advocate for? What are the things
well,
we're concerned about
we need social clubs. I mean,
Yeah.
I think everybody agrees. We need the equivalent of bars. We need smoke-easies, and they need to be legal. Frankly, I would just assume the early ones be like the proposal that's currently being circulated by Denver NORML, which is make them separate from alcohol. I'm not sure I want to be responsible for everything those damn alcohol drinkers do. I know I'm bi-druggal. I do both drugs. But
bi-druggal.
But alcohol can be a dangerous drug. Marijuana's not. So in some ways, I'd almost prefer that we keep our marijuana clubs like a lot of them in Holland, where they're marijuana only. But I also see no reason why we don't experiment with all kinds of models. The main principle is this. There's nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana, so there's no reason we should only be allowed to smoke in our home. That's idiotic. We're sociable people, and marijuana is a sociable drug. So we need places we can join socially where it's legal to share marijuana.
So this year, NORML is what, 46?
I
45?
guess we're just starting our 46th year. That's right. We started in late 1970. So now we didn't know it was going to be 46 or 7 years. We thought it might take us a decade to legalize marijuana. We were a little optimistic, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah. Do you think we've crossed the tipping point? Do you think there's, like, if in Keith Stropp's worst nightmare scenarios of President Trump and Attorney General Christie, do you think that this is reversible in any way?
Well, I've lived long enough to recognize that even when you're on a roll, and we were on a roll in the 1970s, we thought we were on a roll that was going to lead very quickly to every state having decriminalization. In other words, we didn't think they'd be arresting any marijuana smoker beyond about 1980.
Yeah.
Well, we sure as hell were wrong. The mood of the country changed pretty quickly in the late 70s, and we went 18 years without winning a single statewide victory until 96 when California adopted legal medical marijuana. So I'm painfully aware that the mood of the country can, under some circumstances, change. But I don't think so now, and I'll tell you why. We've outlived our opponents. Most of the people who were really against marijuana were my age or older, and most of them are either retired or dead. And younger people just do not have any problem with marijuana. Whether they smoke it or not, it's no big deal. So I don't see us losing this at this time. I think we're past the tipping point, but I wouldn't bet my life on it.
So that means we are approaching a silver anniversary of NORML in a few years.
Oh, we'll still be working hard on a silver anniversary. I probably won't be here to share it, but I'm sure the organization will, because once you stop the arrest of smokers, then you start dealing with issues like fair employment laws. You shouldn't be fired because you have THC in your system. They should have to show impairment on the job. You shouldn't have to fight to retain custody of your kids because you smoke marijuana. They should have to prove you're an unfit parent or leave you alone. So, there are a number of areas that we're still going to have to work hard on. 1 second here. Brother Gerald Goldstein, who I hope will come up here and talk to you after me, just passed me a note on this absolutely fabulous day in Aspen, Colorado. We're looking out over Aspen Mountain, and the note says, "I apologize for the weather." It's seldom been any nicer, Jerry.
We had, speaking of Gerald Goldstein, and just this past couple weeks ago in Washington, where he received the Michael Kennedy Award, the first award of that namesake. And we also had the Representative Rohrabacher bombshell.
Yes,
so
indeed.
It was big news internally and externally as far as NORML goes.
Yeah, it was interesting. It's a strange time because we all know we don't yet have enough support in Congress to make any major progress. But there are a few areas where we've got a cadre now of a couple of dozen congressmen who they're strategizing. How do we win a couple of these battles? How do we fix 280E? How do we make it where you can have a bank account if it's a legitimate state business? You accept credit cards. Those things, I think we are going to win over the next year. And as they just demonstrated with that vote on the veterans' rights, the fact that we could finally, 2 years ago, a VA doctor couldn't even continue to see a patient, a veteran, if they tested positive for THC. In other words, if you smoke marijuana on your own, they would throw you out of the damn VA system.
Yeah.
Then they went halfway and said, okay, we won't throw you out any longer. Now, based on this, any VA doctor who wants to recommend medical marijuana to a veteran is free to do so. And, man, that's going to help a lot of veterans. So we're making progress even under difficult circumstances in Washington. But I do want people to keep in mind, I think we're still 3 or 4 or 5 years away from having sufficient support to back the government totally out and just allow state legalization to advance. Right now, state legalization is advancing, but we kind of have this specter that what if you had a bad president, like you mentioned?
Yeah.
And what if they decided to try to enforce that supremacy clause? Now, they wouldn't like what they had left, because it wouldn't force a state to have criminal penalties against marijuana. All it would do would be get rid of the regulation that legalizes commercial cultivation and sale. So what you'd have is you'd have total decriminalization and a thriving black market. And I don't think that's really what they want. So
I know some people in the Pacific Northwest who'd like that.
Oh, I think I think there are a lot of people in the business, as we say, who would be perfectly fine with full decriminalization. They're doing pretty well right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So we've got California, Arizona, Nevada, Massachusetts, Maine. Maine and Nevada are on the ballot. California looks like it's going to be.
Yep.
I've heard some difficulties in Massachusetts as far as getting signatures.
Well, I think now they've I believe they have sufficient signatures. My problem is there's been at least one survey up there that didn't show very strong support.
Yeah, 46, 43.
Now, I think there was another one that showed fairly significant support, over 55%. So I don't know for sure what is accurate and what is not. My expectation is that if you have a legalization initiative on the ballot in Massachusetts, it's going to pass. That's my inkling, my prejudice. I guess I've always thought of Massachusetts as being a pretty progressive state.
Yeah.
So I would expect we'll win that. I think we'll win Nevada. Arizona's going to be close. I think that'll be very close. But I think we're going to win California, and that's the big enchilada, man.
and now Michigan, they've turned in 354,000 signatures. They need 252,000. It works out to about a 71.4% rate they need.
Well, and also there is that one issue that I haven't heard explained fully. In past years, the legislature has allowed some initiatives an extra few months to collect the signatures.
Mm-hmm.
They are not allowing this group. So the question I have is I had heard some of the signatures they turned in may have been too old.
Yeah, that's part of that. And the House had put forth a bill to have that strict 180-day window.
Yes.
And what it has been previously is, it's a 180-day window, but there's a rebuttable, you could go back and prove the old signatures were still good.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to take away.
Yeah.
It always seems like whenever we have a marijuana issue making headway, they want to restrict the vote. They want to kill democracy.
Well, look, when you're for or against any issue in our democracy, you look for various pressure points in how you can either stop your opponent from advancing, or it's even more fun when you trying to figure out how can you advance your own agenda. Well, obviously, with the folks who favor continued marijuana prohibition, they're running out of options, to be honest. In most initiatives, they're going to lose if it gets voted on by the people. In more and more state legislatures, I think we're going to start winning. So in some ways, what they're trying to do is raise the standard, make it more difficult for you to win, or in some cases, like I know there's an effort being made right now, I guess I think it's in Colorado, to cut back on the amount they're allowed to have for concentrates, or to put limits in that aren't there now. Now, that may be Oregon, too. I'm not sure. Yeah. But, so, I mean, our opponents haven't given up just because they're losing. But I will tell you this. They know they're losing.
Well, it's great that they're losing. And Keith Stropp, founder of NORML, thanks for stopping by and talking to us during the party here.
Thanks for being with us, Russ. Always nice to see you, friend.
My pleasure. And we're going to shut things down here. That's the end of Hour 2. Thanks for joining us here. We'll have another live show here from Aspen, Colorado tomorrow, so make sure you join us 4 p.m. Mountain Time, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And a quick note from Jordan Person, Denver NORML, vote. Real quick.
Vote for our initiative.
There we go. Thank you. I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it.